Hi guys, it's M2K.
This is MVG Scatt here.
And today we're going to be talking about the most hated characters in Japan. So there's 5 characters I want to talk about. There's 4 characters that are disliked in Japan, but there's also Sonic, who is strangely not disliked in Japan, but disliked in America. Like if there's a video of Sonic's, S-O-N-I-X, for example, but you know how people dislike his videos in like the American tournaments and stuff. Maybe it's because stigma and bandwagoning, and then you combine that with his extra timeout playstyle. It's probably not just one reason, but maybe a combination of multiple things I just said. That probably makes that. But then, stigma and bandwagoning, that's the thing anywhere in the world, whether you admit it or not, or whether you realize it or not, and that's always going to be a variable. Not saying it's the main reason, but it will always be a variable to consider. And then there's also the way they play. Oh, are they running away or are they fighting up close? But so I looked up Ken Sonic. No one hated it. I looked up other Sonic players from Japan, and no one hated it. It's just the Americans that hate Sonic, but the Japanese don't. And we're not even counting Ken. Even if you take Ken out of the equation, same thing. Even if Sonic dominates like a mid-tier.
I still think it's important to note too that there's a couple of offline Japanese tournaments at the moment, so the stigma behind Sonic may be there because of that. And online we've had, I'm pretty sure 95 to 100% online tournaments since quarantines began. So it's definitely a different experience for fighting Sonic online compared to offline. And maybe Japan still remembers what it's like. Maybe they feel Sonic is not that bad of a character to deal with when you have 6 or so extra frames to react and to punish Sonic. But like you're saying, at least with Sonic, what I think could be the difference too, Sonic commits to spin dashing with his hurt box. So there is an actual chance to get a hit on him if you can call out his spin dash. However, with characters like Min, for example, you don't necessarily have that opportunity in case they do decide to swing with one of their arms and they whiff. You kind of just have to take the reward as stage control and getting slightly closer to them, but not necessarily hitting them, which is definitely not a super fun feeling when you can't touch your opponent, but they can always touch you no matter where you are on the screen.
I have a different theory on why Sonics are hated in America and not here. It's the length of the video.
The length of the video.
It's the lack of timeouts. I think that's what it is. So yeah, that would apply to Sonic, you would think, right? But then I haven't really been seeing many timeouts in general. With even with Min. Min is the most hated character in Japan overall. If Min is on the screen at all, people dislike it. But if Min wins,
oh man.
If Min wins,
all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. So if Min's on the screen, it's already bad. But then if Min wins, it's even way worse than that. Like it's way more dislike than like ratio, and it's by multiple Min players as well. People just don't like Min, and that's not even involving timeouts. It's just stigma against Min the way there's stigma against Sonic in America.
I think it's important to note, given that how prevalent do you think these characters will be in an offline meta? Sonic, recently did get buffed, and he does have the ability to connect with this up air a little bit better than he did in the previous patches. And Min, hasn't seen any offline play at all. But many people are saying that she could potentially be borderline top tier because of the fact that she controls so much space without much commitment. I wonder if that changes at all when we move to offline play.
I think both these characters are at least borderline top tier offline.
Oh yeah, for sure. After the buffs, I debatably think that Sonic is a top tier character again. And again, with Min, there are certain situations where she just does not have to worry about playing the game where other players do. In terms of advantage and disadvantage, and neutral, she kind of, I don't want to say she quote unquote cheats, but she kind of does cut out parts of neutral that you would normally have to worry about with other characters, considering how much space she controls. And it's especially prevalent in advantage and disadvantage, where again, she puts you in those situations where you're far off stage, and you don't have to worry about whether or not you can make it back. You kind of have to worry about if you're going to get hit by the Min arm or not from anywhere on the screen. And giving her up B, giving her the extra vertical advantage, it's really, really hard to get anywhere near the stage without being threatened in some way, shape, or form by Min.
So I want to say that Min Min is a projectile character with no projectiles. She basically functions like a projectile character in the sense that she can basically threaten you from the entire stage away. She basically functions like a projectile character. It's just that she doesn't technically have projectiles, but when her moves are like that, all her main moves are like that, she might as well function that way.
Yeah, and that's a super, super good quality to have in the game. When you have a quote-unquote projectile that does not have projectile properties, meaning no reflex, no ability to clank them out in some way, shape, or form. You can clank her arms out with strong enough attacks, but if she pulls out Megawatt or she pulls out a stronger arm, it's typically not the easiest thing to do, especially since she can mix it up between 1 or 2 arms being thrown out at any given point in time. So even characters like Samus, or characters that have lots of projectiles and lots of range, like Mega Man, the Belmonts, those characters don't necessarily have the tools to deal with Min Min's boxing options, because she can not only punch them out, but she can also, again, use her reflector and her up smash to kind of actually control neutral, even with characters that can contest her range. And it's quite hard to deal with most characters. And I think the final thing that, in my mind, pushes Min Min over the top, and maybe pushes Min Min over the top in the Japanese levels of play, is again how much she simplifies the gameplay in terms of neutral. She forces you to commit to, I would say, questionable options against other characters, where you may have to overextend with a double jump, or you may have to extend much further than you like to, just to try to get an opportunity to hit her. And even if you do corner this character, she still has options to escape the corner fairly easily, including her grounded up B, which is invincible, very close to startup, and is not the easiest to catch.
No, I think it's like frame 7 or something. It's not that. It's not
like
that
frame
fast.
6, right?
It's something like that. It's not that close to startup.
Yeah,
it's like much slower than a roll for invincibility.
Yeah, the biggest boon about it, though, is the fact that you can angle it, and you can do it out of shield to escape situations where you are in the corner. So it's fairly difficult to catch Min Min compared to another character that has her kind of mobility specs, which is, again, frustrating when you spent the entire match just trying to get to her in the first place just to get a hit in.
She also has a really, really fast up smash out of shield. It's like frame 7 or something. But I think that what it comes down to is people just don't like Min Min. There's a stigma against Min Min. It's shown through multiple Min Min players. Like, no matter who's using the Min Min, a lot of people just disliked it regardless. I mean, Domo checked like multiple different videos before this talk, where we saw different Min Mins, and they're like, no matter who the player is, it's just, if Min Min's on the screen, it's disliked a good amount. But if Min Min wins, oh god. Like,
it's over. It's over.
Min Min wins. It's clearly they're a super, super, super disliked character over there. Samus was another one we were just talking about. Samus is like probably second or third most disliked. So there's a Samus player. He's like Kinmi. And a lot of his videos, especially when he wins, he's been doing really well in Japan. And when he wins, people just don't like that stuff, dude. Like, look at that, 28%. 28%?
Oof.
Like, that's it takes a lot to make you want to just. This is just one example. This character won. I hate life, dislike. and I hit the thumb down arrow. I feel better about myself now. I made an online tier list like many months ago, like a really long time ago, and I had actually Samus was in my top 3. And because Charge Shot Online is OP, really OP. Also, a lot of the stuff she does, like dash attack and grab, they're way more spammable and safe on average online than offline by like a lot. So she can do like a lot of ridiculous, like, the main reason is charge shot, of course. Like, charge shot is unreactable half the screen. And then a lot of this stuff, if she misses, as I said, like dash attack and grab and stuff, if she misses a lot of her moves where you have barely enough time to react offline, you cannot react online. So it's like a lot of her stuff is like just extra better. But yeah, it really just mostly comes down to charge shot being like OP. So
yeah, and then we see again some of those attributes that are similar to Min Min. The near full screen non-committal projectile, quote unquote, that forces your opponent to make a guess without necessarily getting a direct hit. Because at most, again, on Wi-Fi, you're probably only going to get stage control, but not actually a punish on Samus, whereas offline, you definitely can get something going there. But yeah, I think that's another factor that plays into why Samus is such a popular character when it comes to, the Japanese meta game, when it comes to these Wi-Fi tournaments and Wi-Fi sets. Granted, I do think that Samus does play quite a bit differently offline, and I do think that Samus is, she's a little bit more interactive, I would say for sure. You know, it's going to be less, I'm in the corner, I'm shooting charge shot, deal with it, and more, how can I trap you with my missiles, my Zair? How can I get my versions off of up air and grab?
Yeah, I also think it's stigma. People just don't like certain characters, but the stigma against Samus is like, it's nowhere near like the stigma against Min Min, for example. But there's definitely been quite a few videos which have had quite bad, like this one. Well, that's not even one of the good examples, but I mean, you could just look at this list and just see all the red. You could just see that's like not as normal as most things. As I said, there's a big gap after Min Min, but Samus is another one worth talking about. Another one worth talking about is actually Terry. Terry is.
I'm curious about this one. Oh my God, Terry's. I actually like watching Terry, so I want to know.
Okay, so Terry, even people like Riddles and myself will tell you this character carries on me, because a lot of the stuff he does, not only does it reward mashing and like, okay, I'm just gonna press the buttons, and regardless of my skill level, I may get carried because they won't be able to react because of input delay. But they can do things like jump in the air and do that downward punch, right? And then when offline, you'll be able to react to it, and you have just enough time to get a punish, right? Because of the online input delay, combined with human reaction time, in a situation that you would commonly be able to react, you would usually not be able to react at all. Which means he'll get something that is completely unsafe online, like that move, that punch he's doing. In a lot of scenarios, if he was to do that same exact strategy offline, he'd probably be punished way more often, like by far. But Terry online, you can literally just press the buttons and do that jump punch, and wow, all this stuff's way safer. Also, supers, you can literally just spam it. And online, because of the input delay, and it's harder to react to, plus harder to react to and harder to punish, by the way, you can just keep spamming your broken moves. And, even if it doesn't work often, it'll eventually work. And then you get rewarded. Yeah, you just need one.
With that being said, what do you think could be some nice counter strategies to this kind of meta right now? Min Min, Terry, Samus, online and offline, if there are any.
You're not gonna like my answer. More stages, more small stages. I've been saying that, but most people don't want to go against what they're used to and status quo. They just want to stay. I'm already comfortable doing this, which I knew was gonna happen. I predicted that right when Ultimate came out, which is why I was trying to make the status quo different from the beginning, because I knew people are just gonna get comfortable with something and then just spam it. Because that's generally what happens in games. But I've always been a believer that we have a lot of good stages, and it would definitely help balance it out. It's not going to fix everything, but at least in things like timeouts, which admittingly don't happen in Japan as much as you'd expect, but can happen with certain players in matchups in America. I do think that would help. It will at least force interactions more often.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of clips, we did take a look at between Samus, not necessarily so much Terry, but Samus and Min Min. There were a lot of characters or a lot of matches where they were in the corner and they, had that space to walk back, maneuver back, and to avoid interacting with your opponent. And I think at the end of the day, that's probably the biggest thing that you want to look out for in terms of, pushing an exciting competitive meta, make your opponents interact. And I definitely do think that a smaller stage list or a stage list with smaller stages would allow that to happen.
Yeah, as I said, I've been proposing that for like the past 2 years. That's always been like what made the most sense to me. And that also nerfs a timeout, like Sonic players in America who do timeouts, or just projectiles in general. Which are both play styles or characters that involve lack of interaction, and it forces more interactions. Now, Terry's broken for different reasons. He's broken because mashing and other reasons, but he's coincidentally broken for other reasons. But the majority of characters better online is for one of the two things I said. And there's one more character who's considered worse online, or considered not very well liked in Japan, but not to the same level as the other characters. Richter, sometimes when certain... No, not all Richters. Like, Shuton's Richter is very, very well liked, but there are some Richter players that was not as much liked. But we have checked out some videos with Richters, as long as the Richter's not Shuton, because people love Shuton's Richter, but other Richters, some people didn't like it as much. And, that's understandable because, the character's archetype is similar to what we just discussed. It's kind of like a half Min Min, half projectile user. it's like you have the whip, which is like a half a min arm, but you know, still ridiculously long range. So, and then the projectiles. So a lot of the match you're not even hitting Richter. And then when you finally get to hit him, he can just play defense and run away, and you have to get, you know, online defense is a little OP, so you kind of got to guess where they're going to go instead of being able to react as easily. And Richter has a lot of escape options of like down tilt, 2 hits. Yes, like as I just said, mix it with rolls and downers in the air. A lot of ways that are like good escape options in general and even better escape options online. So going a lot of mats not being able to fight him and being like, man, I'm getting hit over and over and over just to get close. And people just don't like that. Kind of like, you know, their displeasure fighting Samus and Min. Richter's kind of like half of both worlds, yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that we haven't noted yet, that all these characters actually have in common, outside of Terry again, is good out of shield options. So it's really hard to space, of course, on Wi-Fi. And all these characters thrive off of you misspacing an area on their shield and them being able to punish you because they have these super, super quick, perhaps slightly low range out of shield options that allow them to get pretty much free damage off of any misspaced move or any misspaced option that you may select. So I think that's also important to note when it comes to, you know, playing into the frustration that people have against these characters and why these characters don't necessarily get liked so much. You know, Min up smash, we mentioned that. Samus obviously has up B, which is another great out of shield option, and Richter has his own up B that's very fast and very useful for covering and punishing people that even slightly misspace anything on the shield.
Yeah, and most people just, since it's online, most people are in the mindset of press the button anyway, which means they're not going to do things like Tomahawk, or I should say Fast Fall Empty Land. They won't be using that as much online because online meta against most players most of the time is actually pressing the button. But what counters pressing the button is this up B out of shield. So the up B out of shield counters the common online meta, which is press the button. Since most people are going to be landing with aerials 95% of the time anyway, because that's what works against most players, that's what most people are conditioned to do is their win condition, the up B out of shield kind of counters that. It's still good offline, but it's also very good at countering the common online strat.
I hope that's a good look as to why these characters are where they are on certain characters tier lists, and why the dislike ratios are the way they are.
The most hated characters in Japan, by far number 1 is Min. Then after that, any order of Samus and Terry, and after that, it'd be Richter, unless it's Shutan's Richter.
All of these characters in some way, shape, or form encourage non-interactivity, which plays into the hand of Wi-Fi, where you have less time to react to certain moves because of the extra frame delay that's related to the game.
Except Terry, who's broken online for other reasons. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if that said, I'll see you guys next time. Let us know what you think in the comments below before you leave about what you think of this video. We're going to have more info in the YouTube description below. And remember, guys, just because you dislike a certain character, don't just downvote it because that hurts the YouTube channel. Thanks. Upvote all our videos. All right, see you guys later.
See ya.